Hi there. My name is David Batshoffen, and I host a travel blog called Travel and Things. Currently, I'm doing a series called In Conversation With, and I'm looking at people at both in the travel industry as well as the entertainment industry. And today, I find myself in Klaserie. Well, I don't find myself in, but I find my guest in Klaserie Sands, and that's James Steyn, who's the lodge manager of Senalala Safari Camp. James, how are you doing?
Morning, David. Yeah, very good. And you? How are you? How's lockdown treating you?
Hey, what can we say? As a non-traveling travel writer, I find myself rather restricted. But then this is where In Conversation With came about, so that I could get to talk to people in lodges, because I know where you are at the moment. And we're going to talk
Sure.
about that briefly in just a sec or two. But it gets me out of the house, so to speak, and also keeps me mentally agile, because I don't know about you, but the whole health thing I can deal with. It's the mental aspect of this lockdown that has really gotten to me over the last few weeks.
Yeah, no, look, I've got to agree. It's exactly that. I think, people look at us sitting here and say, wow, you guys are so fortunate. You're so lucky. Look where you are at in lockdown. The point is, physically is not the problem here at the moment. It's mentally. It's the fact that in our minds, we're all locked down, and the uncertainty that weighs in on that,
Yep.
I think, is what causes people to stress.
James, before we go any further, people who are watching this are going to go,
Sure.
hang on a second. We know that face. So tell us why they would know who you are.
Well, I was very fortunate to spend a season, and I think it was the 30th anniversary season, as one of the anchor presenters for the environmental TV-based show 50/50. So that might be potentially where they know me from.
It's a question that I've been asking all the guests that I've been talking to. Talk me through James Steyn in matric. Did you know that this is what you wanted to be, or were all you interested in was playing rugby and having girlfriends?
Yeah, no, look, it wasn't any of that. I think I was very fortunate, David, in the sense that I spent a lot of time growing up on a cattle farm in the Eastern Transvaal Lowveld. And Kruger, like the typical family that lives in close proximity to Kruger. So quite often we did that. And it was never something I had to think about. I think, and I love using this phrase, I've used it before. I think people who know me are sick of it already. I think my soul naturally just gravitated into this industry. And it was almost a case of one morning when I woke up, I found myself working in the conservation and guiding industry.
You had no choice in the matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, the typical thing from people is, oh, I love animals, or I love bush. But everybody loves the bush. The bush is not a difficult place to like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't warrant, liking the being passionate about the bush. I think doesn't warrant or justify spending 25, 26 years of your life there committed to the industry. I think it's important to realize there's something more to it, because believe it or not, we spoke about earlier on, it's a wonderful setting, but there's certainly many challenges that come with living and working in this industry.
Specifically when you're sort of in the middle of nowhere and your nearest supermarket is a good morning's ride away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's other things, so I'll give you just a quick rundown. Understand that certain people grow up being churchgoers. If you're one of those people, that's not happening anymore. You're not going to church. If you're a sporty person, which certainly I and my family were, we enjoyed sports. You're not doing any sports anymore. You don't get to go to social gatherings such as weddings and friends' birthdays and things like that. So the social aspect, obviously, in terms of outside of this industry, becomes limited. But yes, the benefits of living and working here far outweighs any of that. But people have to understand that it's not always moonlight and roses, that's for sure.
And then along came 27th of March and everything changed. How has it
Sure.
changed for Senalala? And I mean, I've briefly visited your camp, and it is a beautiful camp with a wonderful setting. And now you have it basically to yourself.
Yeah. Look, the fortunate thing is loneliness. Just quickly, loneliness is an interesting thing, but many people believe that they can stomach or face loneliness until it's actually on their doorstep. Then they realize it's not that easy. But it certainly is no stranger to me. You know, in having spent the past 25 years in this industry, there's been many times in my career in many places that I've lived alone and not seen many people other than the odd guest that comes along. So being isolated is and being alone is not really a problem for me, but it could potentially be a problem for other people. So I think, you know, the first 2 years that I was running Senalala, I've been here going on almost, I think, 16 years now. The first 2 years, I think I had guests once the first year and 3 times the second year. So it was just the nature of the company who owned it at the time and the way they ran it. So that it feels like the old days. That's what I'm trying to say.
Did you not think to stand on the main road to Hoedspruit and just go, free accommodation, I need to talk to somebody?
I did feel that many, many times, you know, but I tell you what, the camp was clean because that's all we ever did every day was sweep the pathways. Yeah. Yeah.
But now obviously that's so you've virtually gone back 16 years now.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, but you know what, we're not alone in this, David. And I think there's a little bit of a console in that. I think, you know, down. So we're not alone in this terms of safari lodges. I obviously know a lot of other friends and people, colleagues in different, you know, industries, conservation, safari, lodge industry, so on and so forth. So this has hit everybody pretty hard. Yeah. And nobody's got guests at the moment. So we're all in the same boat. And somehow there's a little, just in the back of your mind, there's maybe a little bit of a, you know, I don't feel so bad because we're all in this together. I hope, you know, kind of a.
But now, what is a typical day? Because I think a lot of us, when that first 21 days was announced, we thought, this is cool. We can all go and finish off those courses that we never completed. We can write the book we were always going to write, all of that stuff. And that went out of the window on about day 4. You went, nah, this is boring. It'll be over soon and I can just carry on with my life. But here we sit in day, I don't know, 1173, 4. I have no idea. It's close to 100 days. And now we've come to the realization that maybe that book is not such a bad idea after all. But what is it like for you? And I'm assuming that aside from your wife, you have staff some staff on the property. So talk me through a typical day at Senalala at the moment.
All right, sure. Yeah, David, if I can maybe just add to you what you initially started with there, because there's quite a bit of humor in all of this. But I think it's quite interesting. In the beginning, when this thing started, I saw the severity and the seriousness of it, because I'm one of those people. I always take worst case scenario, and then I deal with whatever comes afterwards. Yeah, I know, you know, and I've got colleagues. I've got friends and colleagues in some of the lodges around us when we started discussing this in the beginning, that all sat and grinned behind their hand, you know, rolled their eyes when I was telling them there's problems coming here. They all thought this thing was going to be over quickly. And I think for the first month or so, I think we all really just sat here with big eyes and looked at each other because we thought the apocalypse was on us. You know, I don't think I'm the only person that thought that. And we were making plans as to how we were going to survive in the bush, on digging in the drainage systems for water and hunting an impala on foot. You know, I thought we all thought that. But to come back to your actual question, we did keep a very small skeleton staff with us that's been with us in the entire time. And exactly that, we're back to, you know, 15 years ago, where we really just cleaning the camp nicely every day. Cordelia and I have been trying to make these YouTube videos. You know, we get out there, we do the odd drive and walk. But, you know, understandably, one also has to know that that's also, there's only so much you can do. You know, I can only show an elephant on a drive, you know, 10 times, and then maybe, you know, the allure of it goes away, you know. So we've got to almost structure and manage those activities so that you keep people entertained, or you keep them interested.
Yeah.
But other than that, we have been catching up on some building and renovations, which has been a good thing, you know, since that opened a little bit a while ago, you know, maybe 2 weeks ago, I think. And you know, the guiding, training, and assessment structure also opened, I think, at the beginning of level 3. So that is actually, you know, that's available. One could actually, within your province, you could accommodate 1 or 2 people if they were to improve on their guiding qualifications. And so I haven't really started doing that much, but I know it's open. One can pursue that.
Because that could be seen as business travel.
Correct.
But
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
I was hired by a lodge 2 weeks ago to go up and do some content research for them, for a series of blogs that I'm writing for them. But arriving at a very busy lodge, it's a high turnover lodge. It's got lots of rooms, and normally the dining room is jam-packed with people. And you walk in there, and as you say, the zombie apocalypse and the zombies have won. Not only have they won, they've come and gone, and they've left nothing besides the dusties.
They've eaten all of us. Yeah,
Sorry?
they've eaten all of us.
They've eaten everybody. It did give me an idea for a book, but I don't know whether I'll write that yet. But so there are those sort of strange feelings. And I suppose in a way, James, you're going to be seeing this, that if the inter-provincial stuff rather than intra-provincial is open, people are not, those that are concerned about their health and about the health of others are not going to leap into a car and go to a lodge that's got 20 or 30 or 50 people in it, where they don't know 49 of those, because it's them and 49 others, that might put them at risk. And for lodge managers and lodge owners, I should imagine that that's the catch-22, is you can't open without guests, and guests are uncertain as to when you're going to open. So how do they make bookings? You know, I had bookings in June that came and went. I hung in until the last minute. The 2 days before, I got the notification from all 3 lodges saying, sorry, love to have you, but we can't. And now, I mean, are you guys looking at a time frame, or are you just playing it sort of one statement from our president at a time?
Yeah, I think that's, I think first and foremost, what's happened, look, David, I believe, firstly, I believe that I think people have realized 2 very important things in this time. And this is globally, I don't think it's just in this country, but I think we've all understood or realized the value of our freedom. We know that, because in our minds, we've been kept or held captive. So we've understood the value of our freedom. And I think people have understood how fragile life can be, because within 2 weeks, the world was turned upside down. And this doesn't mean that this can't happen again in 5 years' time. So I think my heart wants to believe that those 2 motivational factors are going to cause people to pursue their bucket lists or their lifelong dreams, of which I know safari, an African safari, is at the top of most people's bucket list. So I'm hoping that people are going to get so frustrated and they're going to get so pinned up with this scenario and this situation that when the international travel certainly opens, because understand, we are really a lodge that focuses on the international travel market. We're not a local market system or lodge. So we're all hoping and waiting. We're taking it one day at a time, as you mentioned there, one statement at a time from the powers that be, when the international travel is going to open and it's going to create, I firmly believe, I think people they're going to let loose, and I think occupancies, in fact, are going to increase exponentially. But that's my opinion, and that's my hope. It's what I'd like to see, obviously. So I think that's where we are.
James, from an animal behavior point of view, I know that you guys have a really nice waterhole just across the way from your camp, and I've sat there with a big pack of wild dogs. Are you finding that they're now using your camp as a hunting ground?
Yeah. No, David. You know what? Nothing much has changed. Quite interestingly, I've seen the odd opinion and statement made on social media. I've got to tell you this. I saw something really funny. I saw somebody took a photograph of a pride of lion lying sleeping on the tar road in one of these national parks or reserves. And there was this guy from abroad who made this statement, who said, yes, yes, more people, because look, the lions are sleeping in the day, but lions only sleep in the day.
You've got to love these wannabe field guides that have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. They're nocturnal. They're largely nocturnal.
Yeah.
And they will spend the entire day, and some of them even sleeping sometimes, So
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. So just to come back, I don't think I've seen any behavioral changes in any of the animals. If anything, I've seen certain of the big game potentially become a little bit more uncertain with the approach of a vehicle, because they haven't seen vehicles for so long. So it's quite interesting how that works. But you do get reserves where animals are sometimes a little bit more habituated to the movement of vehicles and so on and so forth. And I think this reserve, it's very wild. The Klaserie is a wild reserve. We're very grateful for that. We did start out with animals having to become a little bit more habituated to the vehicles, and we've got it to a point where it was really good for us. And what I've seen from one or two of the mammals, it looks like it's going backwards again now.
Yeah. But then, funny you should say that about lions being nocturnal. I mean, when I was up at that particular reserve in Limpopo 2 weeks ago, we found an aardvark shuffling along the side of the road at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we found him 2 days later at 11 o'clock in the morning. You sort of want to go, excuse me, do you not understand that you're meant to be nocturnal? You're not meant to be out in the middle of the day looking for a meal, because something will look for you.
For you, yeah. That's fantastic. Look, that's not a common sighting, certainly in the Lowveld, in this part of the country. But I've no doubt in my mind that if there is less vehicle and people movement eventually in the broader spectrum, then animals may start wandering a little bit more during times that they never did before. But not to the extent where, the human interaction with the animals in these environments have ever caused the animals any harm. I mean, it hasn't. It's we share. I love this concept or idea from people often, where they say, "Yeah, but we don't belong here." No, we do belong here. This is where we all belong. We should just find a way to get along. We should share the same environment, because well, that's it. Because, David, few people understand or know that little over 100 years ago, 90% of the world was rural.
Yeah.
So we are, we lived mostly rurally. Cities is it's a new concept. And people seem to believe, especially the city folks, seem to believe that we come from cities. No, we don't. We all come from the bush.
It's like, my beard, for instance, I started growing before lockdown. But a lot of people have taken to growing beards. And as I said to somebody that I interviewed just yesterday, why? Shaving is not banned. We're allowed to shave. Not even in level 5 did they stop us shaving. But it was a case of, okay, we're all going to grow beards. Not the women, or some of them did maybe. But let's not be sexist about it. But at the end of the day, then everybody went, we can't go and get our hair cut. And I said to my wife, you know what? When we were cave people, we didn't go, those cave people didn't go to a hairdresser or a barber to look good. It was what it was. So as Steve Hofmeyer said, this who did this. And this who did movies, So why everybody got all uptight about having a haircut, I have no idea. Cut it all off and then it'll regrow. That's the beauty with hair. It does come back. So eventually, unless you get to my age, and then it doesn't. But just to get back to your statement about animals and habituation, do you not then find that the drives that you're doing help them understand, for want of a better term, that there are still vehicles on the property. So you guys haven't vanished. There's just less of you, but you're still there.
Yeah, that's right. No, we're there. And yes, and it does help. And referring to that, there was nothing serious. It wasn't that there's a major change or anything like that. But it's just the consistency is not there like it used to be. So,
Yeah.
and that's anything in life works like that. It's like practice. The more you practice something, the better you get at it. The more you drive a car, the better you get at it. Hopefully, depending on how many beers you had. But the point is, I think it's just that if there's more exposure, there's more consistency in habituation. If there's less exposure, then there's less. And so I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it will stay away forever. So
yeah, because I know I read reports because they've started looking at electric vehicles now for game drives, and
Sure.
I'd read reports in the early days that the animals didn't understand because it's the same shape, but now it's got no sound and it's sneaking up on them. And I believe in the early days animals ran because they were expecting to hear the noise of the diesel or petrol engine. It was part of the shape. So to have no sound creeping up on you, it's like a Prius pulling up next to you at a traffic light. You don't even know the thing is there.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, Dave, you're 100% right. I think, so first and foremost, people have to understand that, vehicles is a modern introduction into the animal psyche or the animal behavioral pattern. Humans on foot, we've been coexisting with them for thousands of years, but certainly the vehicle is a new introduction. And instinctively, most animals don't perceive a vehicle as a threat to them because they don't know it as a threat. Yeah. They don't see it as a threat, so they get used to it very quickly and habituated to it very quickly. And we've got to also understand that there's a very big difference between being habituated and being tame. There's no such thing. Wild animals don't get tame around vehicles. They get habituated around vehicles. It just means they allow the vehicle to be within close proximity to them, as long as it doesn't interfere with their behavior at the time or their behavioral pattern at the time. They start seeing it as part of the surrounding environment, and they're happy to have it, but certainly not tame. So, I do remember being at one of the lodges who had the electrical vehicles, and I was fortunate enough to be able to take one out with one of the guides, and I was impressed. I think, why wouldn't you be? But there were certain, it was by no means perfect, like most things in life. There was certainly a whining sound, I seem to recall, even if you were in neutral in a sighting. It sounded almost like a dynamo whining or something. So you actually had to switch the engine off completely for being able to have that not running. But I certainly did find exactly what you were saying there, especially with elephants. And elephants are very intelligent animals. They're very sensitive to their environment and what goes on in their environment. So I found with the breeding herd specifically, not so much the bulls, on my particular drive that I did with this vehicle, they did seem to be a little bit wary of the approach of this new sound. Rightfully, as you say, they were used to the old diesel engines and they were quite happy to have them. But it would only be a matter of time. It will only be a matter of time until we get to expose them to the electrical vehicles, because that, I presume, and I would only presume that would be the future.
I should imagine so. And by the same token, you're sort of sitting at breakfast and the lodge sends up a drone so that you can, while you're eating your breakfast, you can watch what's happening out in the bush. You can call it 60-40, I don't know, instead of 50-50, and make your own programs.
Yeah, that's sure.
James, do you still, after all these years in the bush, do you still have a bucket list of sightings that you haven't seen?
Yes, it's a good question. I would not so much in the African context, Dave, but certainly, I would like to go abroad one day, and I would like to see grizzly bears fishing for salmon in the, one of the Alaskan rivers.
Right.
I would certainly like to see something like that. Interestingly enough, from my point of view, I've never been an animal person. I'm not amazed by or mesmerized by animals in the bush. I'm a view I'm a mountain view or a river view kind of a person. So I'm very happy seeing beautiful places, you know, that's got
Okay.
grandeur. It's good for the soul.
Yeah, it
And so
is.
for me, always, I've never really had to see an animal to make me happy. As long as I can be in the bush and I'm surrounded by a Mopani felt thicket
Mm,
with the different beautiful autumn and winter colors, I think I'm very happy. So there isn't many animals that I'd like to see. I would, for instance, go to Alaska specifically to see the bear. That would be definitely one of the highlights. But I'd like to see the mountains and the rivers,
yeah.
the wild country. That's
Yeah.
what really interests me is wild country. I'm not so much intrigued by the actual individual animal sightings. And I've
Okay.
always been like that my whole guiding career.
Because we have, when you mention that, there's one particular lodge in the Waterberg that if you walk through the front doors, you've got the mountains in the background. And when
Wow.
I did that, I said to my wife, I want that painted on the inside of our boundary wall so that when I wake up in the morning, there is a semblance of a mountain range in our garden. Needless to say, we never did it because it's not the same. And I
No.
do hear what you're saying, because being in the bush, and this I think is true for everybody. Most people go because of the animals, but
They do.
I do believe that there is a time and a place where you just want to sit and look at your surroundings and go, as they say in Greek, bliksem, dis maar baie mooi.
That's very good Greek. I didn't know that you
It's the only Greek
Greek
I
like
speak.
that.
But
Yeah, no, Dave.
it's exactly that. I think, James, that now that you know what you were saying earlier about people understanding what it is to be locked down and to be kept confined, I think that people will do that when they go out into open spaces, and they will take a moment just to breathe and to be in the place rather than just go, take me to the next dangerous animal. That's all I've come to see.
Well, David, you know, you couldn't have said it better, because that's exactly the point. There's going to be a mind shift here, because we're going to lose luxuries. You know, a lot of us are going to lose luxuries that we are used to, and people are going to somehow, you know, I definitely think psychologically return back to basics to a certain extent, and they're going to start appreciating the finer things again, because they're not going to have the luxury to just at the stamp of their finger get what they wanted. You know,
Yeah.
I think unfortunately, and I hope you've got time, David. Sorry,
Yes.
I stray a bit from the, but as you ask these questions, all these interesting thoughts
That's
come up
fine.
in my mind. You know, I
That's
think
why it's called In
I have.
Conversation With, James, and it's not an interview.
Oh, fantastic. So I actually believe, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately to an extent, I believe the animals of the African bush, and particularly you and I both know, we're talking mostly about the big five here. I believe that they've been over-marketed, and unfortunately, they have been used as a marketing ploy and a marketing tool to lure people to the African bush, where that should never have been the case. You should have marketed the beauty,
Yeah.
the timelessness, the serenity. You can come up with all these wonderful words. The solitude of the African bush, first and foremost, and the animals then should have been the byproduct, or the second, you know, a bonus to that, or a supplement to that. And unfortunately, it's too late now to change that, mentally anyway, you know, in people's minds. But so that's put a lot of pressure, I think, over the years on the safari industry, on lodges, on guides, on managers, on head rangers, whatever you like, even the animals. You know, that's put pressure on the animals, because there are colleagues in all of this. You know, and people don't understand that, but there are colleagues, and we rely and depend on them as much as you know, they do on themselves and on the environment. So I think, you know, for me, it's important to make this point that you know, I don't believe that we should be so focused just on the animals, and hopefully now with people's mindsets being changed because they've been cooped up, they will start yearning for the finer things again. Even I can take this for you even to the guiding context, David. You know, when I started guiding 25 years ago, and I often say that to people, I think they're also tired of hearing that. But when I'm not one of those guys that when I started guiding, or in my day, you know how our parents used to tell us, yeah. So
Back in
I
the day.
apologize for that. I apologize for that, yeah. So certainly, I remember, and I'll never forget this. I couldn't believe my luck that I could break into this industry. I was so blown away by the fact that someone's going to have me and teach me to be a guide and give me an opportunity to get into the guiding industry.
Right.
The realm of then at the time, the bush and the guiding industry was such an unknown, working there was such an unknown thing for me. And I was so consumed by the challenge and the, what lay ahead in terms of pursuing this career. We never worried about things like money or a car or a girlfriend at the time or anything like that, because they put me 600 rand a month, and I was it was the best thing I ever heard in my life. I thought I'm going to earn my first salary. I didn't care if it was only 600 rand a month. And then a week later, they actually reduced it to 400 because some of the other guides that were already there complained. They said they started on 400. Why should I start on 600? So they reduced it to 400 rand. But the point is, I got involved in the guiding industry and I became a guide because I was fascinated by the industry and about the prospect of what it held. I didn't care for a lifestyle. So what I'm trying to say is, I've seen one too many guides, unfortunately, I think, in this modern era. So what they do is they come with a lifestyle. They've created a lifestyle for themselves already, and then they look for the lodge that can support their lifestyle. And that it doesn't work like that. Should take the job. You should take the job because you want to be there. You want to be in the bush, and then you create a lifestyle based on what the job offers you there and then at the time. Not the other way around.
No, there was that wonderful book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and it's that sort of thing exactly. If you're living in a fancy house with your parents, and now you've gone and done a course, a year-long course at one of the training venues, and then all of a sudden now Lodge X offers you a job, and you're going to be sleeping in a tent, and you've got to share ablutions, and you sort of go, no, hang on a second, I can't do that. Well, then you may as well go and say, would you like fries with that behind a counter somewhere? Because that's not the job. That's not the job for you. No. It's exactly what you say. But I wanted to go back, and now I've lost my train of thought. I should have made a note. I know what it was. You were talking about the big five. And I think the issue now, and you did touch on it, James, is no matter how they've tried to rebrand the big five, Dangerous Game, Iconic Animals, all of that, it's too late. It's gone too far, because the first thing people, and I know I've been sitting at lodges working, and new guests arrive and they go, when are we going to see the big five? Like the animals are going to parade past the window, one species at a time. If they come back from a game drive and you say, what did you see? And they go, nothing. Then know that they've seen plains game. They've seen probably giraffe, zebra, elephant, maybe not elephant, but all of and they've seen hundreds, if not thousands of impala, depending on where they are. Yet they've seen nothing because they haven't seen the big five.
That's it.
And impala are always my go-to for people, because if you sit with a herd of impala in the right light, they are achingly beautiful. They really and truly are, and interesting to watch. But no, you want to get onto something that's going to kill them. Doesn't always work like that.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. So I want to answer you. I want to give you my opinion on that. But can I just touch on I want to round off the previous topic just that we discussed. And I just wanted to say, so I was going to end it off by saying one of the fortunate things I think in all of this is guides. If the lodge industry opens again, the people who stuck around and the people who are going to get back into the guiding industry now are the people who really want to be there. And they're going to be more like me and my era were. They're going to be people who they're going to come to you and they're going to say, I know it's difficult times. I know I can't get the salary that I'm looking for, this, that, and the other thing. But for now, it doesn't matter. I just want to work in the bush. And I believe firmly, we're going to get back to having the same kind of guides that really want to be it simply because they want to, not because because if I've seen people, if they offered 3 jobs, like you said, if they offered 3 jobs, and the first job actually plays the third offers the higher salary, they more often than not would go for the higher salary. They'd actually sacrifice the place where they really wanted to work because they wanted the money, and that's very unfortunate for me. So coming back to exactly your thing about the big five, so it is a strange concept, and I think unfortunately that's it. You know, we often get agents phoning us and saying to us, if you can't guarantee the big five, we're not going to book with you. And yeah, you know, that doesn't, I can't comprehend that.
Do they not
because
understand
I'm certainly not going to,
that animals don't read their emails half the time?
Sure.
You send out the memos, they don't read them.
I can tell you this, if that dream trip that I want to take to Alaska, I don't care if I'm not going to phone up ahead and say, just by the way, I'd like to find out if you can't guarantee me a grizzly with a salmon in its mouth in one of the rapids, or Wi-Fi for that matter, because that's the next thing we can bring into the equation. I'm not going to come. I'm going to sacrifice my lifelong dream of coming to Alaska because you can't guarantee grizzly bear and Wi-Fi. I mean, that's preposterous. That's the right word. Yeah.
No, it is indeed. I mean, we did the same thing. We went to India 2 years ago, and part of the trip that my wife had organized was to a national park to do tiger safaris.
Oh,
and they said to us, we can't guarantee. And then what happens? We see the same tiger on 6 successive days. It was awesome.
Yeah,
really.
I tell you why. You had no expectation.
None.
That's the secret.
None.
That's the secret.
But James, that's how everybody should look. Let's not be judgmental, because if you're coming from overseas, as your guests do, and it's a once in a lifetime trip, you and I are lucky. If we go to the bush, it's different for you because the mountains and the trees are always there. They're never going to run away from you. But it took me 53 years to see my first pangolin, and where did I see it? At Klaserie Sands. But for a lot of people, that is a once in a lifetime trip. They've saved up for years and years and years. They come, they want, and then they leave. You and I, if we don't see this week, you live in the bush. I'm in and out of the bush, or I was pre-lockdown, twice a month.
Yep, sure.
There's an opportunity that I'm going to see it in 2 weeks' time. So I go to the bush. I've always been like that, with absolutely no expectations.
Yeah.
My only thing to the guides when they say, what would you like to see? I used to say pangolin. Now I've stopped talking about them. But I always say, show me something. As long as I see something that I haven't seen before, and it can be anything. It can be a dung beetle pushing dung the wrong way round, or a snake that will cross the road, something like that. I was actually talking to somebody just the other day. My favorite birding image that I've got is of a brown snake eagle eating a puff adder and pooing at the same time. So I've got the snake going in one end and poo coming out the other. Still one of my favorite images that I've taken.
Very unusual, yeah.
Very unusual. But as I said to the guy, the problem was, I think we scared the bird. We came around a corner. It was sitting on a tree above the road. And I think it wasn't expecting us, which is why it pooed. But it didn't drop the puff adder, I'll give it that.
Yeah, no, sure.
But, maybe now, again, post-lockdown, when that eventually happens, maybe that's exactly what people are going to do. They will come back to the bush, and they will come for the solitude and for the serenity and the tranquility. And you'll probably find that when you say it's time for a game drive, they go, no, just let us sit at the lodge and watch the waterhole. We'll do a sofa safari. We don't have to go anywhere, which means you guys don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning on a freezing cold winter's morning to make coffee.
But David, saying that, there's certainly no negativity on the part of saying that I think people have become a little bit too infatuated with the big five. The point being that, and let's come back to your, family abroad that saved their entire life to go on one African safari, and they'd like to maximize it. Of course, that's normal, that's human, and there's no problem with that. We accommodate that because we always inevitably end up giving people a good time regardless.
Yeah.
you know, I have to, and I'm not saying I never had unhappy guests in my entire guiding career, but there's been very few. So, you know, I've mostly always created an experience for people, certainly, and certainly most of the guides that I know, where the people have had enough, if you like, or they've gotten what they felt they needed. There's a fantastic saying. It's actually a saying that I learned from one of my colleagues, also a very well-known, let's call it a figure in the guiding industry, a guy by the name of Adrian Lowe, and I'm sure you've heard his name before.
Mm.
Adrian says when people come to the bush, they always get what they need or what they deserve.
Yeah.
So go and you can go and mull that around in your mind a little bit. But the point being, regardless, we will always try and strive to make people's dreams come true. And that's the thing about guiding, isn't it? And that's one of the things that very few people understand. But most guides I know are people pleasers.
Yeah.
They're very sensitive people. They're in some ways very dynamic in the context of they're almost creative. And I think they strive and they love to please. And so, you know, it's very seldom that people will go away from this experience, not having been happy, you know. So they may not have seen all the animals always, but you create a good enough experience to make them happy. And we'll always strive to do that regardless.
When people say to you, I want to see a pangolin riding on a leopard, you'll go, I'll try, I can't guarantee it.
That's it. We might find you the leopard riding on the pangolin, but not the other way around.
James, if people, just in wrapping up, if people are thinking about 2021, if the year will ever exist, because I think it's just going to be 2020.1 next year. We're not going to change years. We're just going to move it. How do they get in touch with the lodge to make bookings or to make inquiries?
Sure. So all our social media, you know, literature is in place, as it always has been. You know, our website is still up and running. It's still active. And yes, you know, Cordelia is all at the lodge, and she's still most days, even through the lockdown, in contact with people, be it people moving a booking, you know, people expecting to cancel or whatever it is. That stream that is still there, so that you know, it's still the same. It hasn't gone away. Yeah.
So spell the camp's name for people, because we said Senalala, but they may not know the spelling.
Yeah, no, it's quite a tricky spelling, but it's Senalala.
Like spelling Mississippi, you never know when to stop.
That's right, yeah, no, for sure.
Or banana.
Yeah,
I have been in conversation with James Steyn. James, thank you so much for being a guest. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks, David. You know, I'd like to, just from my side, if I can finish up with something, and maybe you'd appreciate that as well. But I had a conversation with someone else at the beginning of lockdown, and they told me that their great-grandmother was born in 1895, and this lady lived to be 106 years old.
Wow.
So she said that we have to understand that we've got this challenge globally. Obviously, it's affecting people right across the world, and it's affecting people individually in different ways. She said, but this great-great-grandfather told her, grandmother,
James, you froze there for a second, so maybe we can just go back and pick that up. You were talking about a 106-year-old grandmother that said...
Yes. Okay, so she said that we have to understand she lived through the First Boer War. She lived through the Second Boer War, right? She went through the concentration camps. She survived all of that. Only then to be confronted with the First World War, the Spanish flu, the Second World War, the missile crisis, the Vietnam War, and various other things. So you know, for me, it's just important there. We think that our lives and our worlds are coming to an end, And here's somebody who survived all of that.
Yeah.
And if you just look at one individual thing there, just look at the First World War. She lived through the First World War. Then everybody must have thought, it's done. The world is coming to an end. And she went through all those things and survived it. So I think we've got to stay positive and understand that this too will come to an end. And, one day we'll look back at this, hopefully, and talk about and laugh about it.
And laugh about it. James, once again, thank you for being my guest on In Conversation With.
Great pleasure, David. And we see you here when you come down to the Lowveld. Looking forward to it.
Thanks very much.